Coming up on the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special, we discuss how an off-season trip to LA has helped the Browns' new-look offense get into mid-season form early in training camp. Plus, we go in-depth on all of the key training camp position battles and take a look at who is earning their stripes through the first 6 practices.
The boys are back in Berea, and so are we. Welcome to the Browns Countdown, the 2018 Training Camp edition here on News 5. I'm WEWS sports anchor John Dust. To my immediate left, Nathan Segura, Browns reporter, who you've seen literally everywhere around camp so far. Dustin Fox, 92.3 The Fan, also a 4-year NFL vet, also one-time national champion with Ohio State. And bookending us there, my partner in crime over at Channel 5, Derek Forrest, sports anchor. Guys, we're going to get into so much in the next hour, but first we got to go with the news of the day. We have wondered who is going to replace Joe Thomas the year after the future Hall of Famer retired, and well, maybe we've got an answer to that. Joel Bitonio switching over to the left tackle role today. He was just asked about that a couple hours ago here in Berea.
They said I was going to get the shot today to go and kind of see where it goes from there, and I studied up on a little bit of left tackle and tried to go out there and compete. I want to help the team win, you know, and Coach Jackson wants to put the best 5 offensive linemen out on the field, and you know, right now he thinks that's with me at left tackle. So I'm going to try and be the best left tackle I can be, and if something happens where I got to go play left guard again, then, you know, I'll try and be ready to do that as well. You know, it's just what's going to help our team win the most games.
What a way to start the show. My goodness. This was previously, guys, I thought plan Z was to switch Bitonio over to left tackle, but Nathan, that seems to be the plan now.
It is the plan now, and you think about it, look, they had a day off, the coaches met, they decided we need to do something at left tackle, and with Sean Coleman, he got the first crack, but you don't know anything until the pads come on. Well, the pads came on, and they were not pleased with what they saw. And the other options, Greg Robinson, out with a concussion, Desmond Harrison on the PUP list, so what did they do? They turned to Joel Bitonio, and Joel Bitonio went out there today, battled Myles Garrett. How about an introduction? Here, come play left tackle for the first time since college. Held his own, and I think the key theme is you want to get your 5 best offensive linemen on the field together at the same time, and that's what they have now with Bitonio at left tackle, and you slide in the 33rd overall pick, Austin Corbett, at left guard.
All right, we're going to circle back around to Bitonio and that offensive line later in the show, but first, a lot of expectations coming into this camp this year, and a big reason why all the offseason moves that John Dorsey made, namely bringing in the guy Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, well, it started that Friday night, remember? I'm sure your phone was blowing up. It was one trade. We got Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, Demarius Randall, and they didn't stop. 15 veterans added to this roster, a complete remaking of the roster by John Dorsey.
Oh, there's no question. You know, Tyrod, to me, is a great move for this franchise because for so many years we've been talking about how they have not had stability at the position. They haven't had a quarterback that's actually won games. This is a guy that went to the playoffs last year. I know the Buffalo fans sort of wanted him out of town, and that's another story, but to bring him here to Cleveland, he's the most decorated quarterback the Browns have had since Bernie Kosar. You think about that. I mean, that's pretty crazy. This is a guy that's a legitimate starting NFL quarterback.
But it's not just Tyrod Taylor. Yeah. The addition to the offense, Jarvis Landry as well comes in and calls this wide receiving core the best in the NFL. Talk about the addition of Landry.
Well, listen, Landry's a stud. This is a guy that has averaged 100 balls a year catch-wise. So he's a stud receiver. Now we're down a little bit without Josh Gordon right now, which we can get into that later. But the point is there's talent at the wide receiver position now, led by a front-end, high-end #1 receiver.
Absolutely. And Jarvis Landry comes in 400 catches, the NFL record for the most receptions in his first 4 years in the NFL. And not only has he come out and been the best player on the field every single day, it's his work ethic, it's the way he approaches running his routes, the way he approaches blocking that has had a positive effect on young receivers, Corey Coleman and Rashard Higgins, who we'll talk about later. But I don't think you can overstate the importance of Landry, and he and Tyrod Taylor already have a strong, strong connection.
It's going to be a while until we fully get a feel for all these offseason moves that John Dorsey made. But so far, 5 days into camp, you feel pretty good about the way this team looks so far, as structured by John Dorsey this offseason.
Well, of course, you needed to upgrade the talent. You'd won 1 game in 2 seasons, and the fact of the matter is that's not good enough in the National Football League. And so, as I said, he went out there and had a plan. You make 3 trades, you get active in free agency. They're going to have about 50% new starters on this football team when it's all said and done compared to a year ago, and you needed it. And John Dorsey was aggressive. He had a plan, and if you think about it, the quarterback room last year, unacceptable. Nobody on the roster had ever won a game in the National Football League at the start of the season. Unfortunately, also true at the end of the season. They are all gone. The quarterback room's new. Pass defense, you give up the highest quarterback rating allowed in the NFL. You bring in corner after corner after corner and use the 4th pick on Denzel Ward. So he was targeted in what he wanted to do and addressed it aggressively, and that's good. We need to start winning some games.
All these new pieces, and you know what? Chemistry quickly is a big deal, Derek.
Yeah, John Dorsey's not going to be the one winning the football games. It'll be the players, and Tyrod Taylor has been taking steps to make sure that the chemistry with this team is going well. And, you know, exclusive video from Building the Browns, which you can catch right here on Channel 5 after our pregame or after the preseason games. He talks about going to LA as a team building experience and what that meant for the offense.
We want to get the guys together before we get to training camp and just get on the same page. I mean, we've been away from each other right now for, I think, about 5 weeks. So just try to get some of the chemistry and the timing back down that we had when we broke from minicamp. As far as choosing LA as the location, I know some of the guys train out here. Jarvis was going to be out here, so I felt that it made more sense. Some of the guys were training in the West Coast as well, too, or Midwest, so I thought it made sense to just get everybody on the same page, and it ended up working out for majority of the guys' schedule.
And you know what's so special about this and the leadership? You talked about Tyrod Taylor coming in as a leader. He got everybody involved, flew them out there, put them up, paid for the whole thing, and I think that chemistry you've seen with him and Landry, you've seen Corey Coleman get off to a fast start, Rashard Higgins, it has a lot to do with what they did out there in L.A.
Yeah, paying for a guy's trip and a little free vacation in the summer. You were like, how'd they get everyone out there? Yeah, he paid for it.
Yeah, it was a good move.
Doing that, buying snow cones, all that stuff.
It's a good move.
I have a 1-year-old, and I know traveling with 1.5 people is difficult, let alone traveling with an entire offense. Dustin, this is good news, though, for new offensive coordinator Todd Haley. The fact that your guys are getting together before the season even starts.
No, there's no question. They put everything in the offseason, the OTA, minicamp period. But these guys still have to learn it. They're working through the terminology. It's changed from what Hugh Jackson did. A lot of the schemes are similar, but like these guys have to learn how to communicate in the huddle. All of them, new players, new faces. So that's a great sign for the team. As you saw the first 5 days in camp, the team looks sharp. And there's no doubt part of that is because of their time together in Los Angeles.
I wanted to ask a quick question about Todd Haley. This is Hugh Jackson bringing him over to be the offensive coordinator. Hugh Jackson, in his entire career, has run the offense. So how does that kind of work against or with Hugh going into this season?
I think it works for him, and I think we'll look back at this as being maybe the biggest acquisition in the offseason, period. Because what Todd Haley brings in, number one, he oversaw the number 2 offense in the NFL for the last 6 years. Number 2, it frees Hugh Jackson up. Hugh had too much on his plate last year. He was the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator. He was also basically the quarterback coach hand-holding Deshaun Kaiser. And you can see just in the pace of practice how much these things have picked up. So it's a good thing to have him here. It allows Hugh to do what he does best, relate to and lead these players.
And you know, if you've been out to training camp so far, you see those plain orange helmets. There's no stripes. What's going on with the no stripes?
You got to
earn them.
You got to earn your stripes, and you'll get them when you make the 53-man roster. However, Dustin and I, you agree with me. Those all-orange helmets look pretty darn good.
I think they're sharp. I don't know.
They might end up just keeping the all-orange helmets. Let's see. You heard it here first.
Did you earn your stripes in broadcasting?
No. Okay. I'm still working.
Still working.
Hey, so look, Nathan and I will be in the pregame and the halftime shows for the preseason games, the 3 preseason games that you'll find right here on News 5. Dustin, you're going to be a part of the show as well. Down there on the sideline as a sideline analyst, and you're going to have a lot more fun than either the two of us will because you're going to be down there with Bernie Kosar.
Oh, that's the fun, hanging out with Bernie Kosar on the sidelines. No, it's going to be a lot of fun. Bernie and I started doing the film room segment last year on the pregame show, and we sort of developed some chemistry, and so this is great. I mean, I think it's going to be an added element to the guys upstairs in the booth, taking it down to the field and being able to get analysis from Bernie, one of the great quarterbacks to have ever played in a Cleveland Brown uniform. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Bernie's going to see stuff. He may see, Baker make a check or something, and then they can come right down to us and we can say, hey, Bernie, what'd you see? That's going to be great.
And you know what? Bernie Kosar won't be the only former Browns quarterback on that broadcast. Yep. Up in the booth with Jay Crawford doing the play-by-play will be color analyst Tim Couch.
Yes.
It's so exciting, and you know, I've gotten so much feedback, positive feedback from Browns fans. You know, excited to see me back here and you know, doing some stuff for the Browns and calling the preseason games, and I'm just really looking forward to it. You know, it's been so long since I've been away from the team. It's just going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Being back as a sideline analyst, it's actually really one of the few times now that I'm actually able to watch a game, because it's actually our job to watch it during it. You know, when you're not actually working at it and you're going to games, sometimes you get distracted with having to talk and then having to not focus on what's going on. I'm really like looking at it, especially from the field perspective.
There is a buzz around Berea right now, the likes of which we haven't really felt in the last handful of years. Do you feel that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think so, and I think rightfully so. You know, if you look at this roster, it's a very talented roster. I mean, there's a lot of guys on this team that are great players. You know, the addition of Jarvis Landry, I think he's going to make such an impact. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a really good, underrated player. You know, took a team to the playoffs last year that hadn't been in a long time. A guy that's going to take care of the football and you know, keep the offense out on the field and those kind of things. And it's just a talented roster. I think it's the most talented roster I've seen here in a very long time.
You know, so much has been talked about the past. So much anticipation and focus has been about the future. I think it's very important that people remember it's about the now. It's about today. The balance of youth and veteran, I think, is better coordinated this year. And the younger guys that we were using in the past have gotten that year or so extra experience. That's definitely helpful.
You're familiar with this area. You're familiar with Cleveland and Northeast Ohio as a football region. These fans are ready.
Sure, absolutely. You know, they're excited, and you know, just been walking around all day here before practice and talking to a lot of fans, and you know, you can hear the excitement in their voice, and you know, they think this football team can really make a move this year, and I totally agree with them.
So as you can see, Tim Couch and Bernie Kosar were at training camp. And there are a lot of people at training camp.
Tim bulked up a little bit, didn't he?
He did bulk up. He's trying to catch up to me and Dustin. I don't know what's going on.
I'm embarrassed to be on the
That's a big dude. That's a big dude.
Hide my muscles.
You know what he said to me? He said, I'm a competitive guy. I needed to pour my competition, my competitive drive into something, and I've decided to do it into weightlifting.
He's winning.
That's what I said
Twice
to him.
A day he does.
That's exactly what I said.
Oh, man.
You're winning.
Oh, man.
If I do it twice a week, I'm happy.
But we've had a lot of fans at training camp. Training camp, though, is sold out for the remainder of the summer, more than likely. So we're going to give you a little look at what you've missed out at camp so far.
Our fans have been unbelievably supportive, which is, Cleveland is just the greatest town to be in if you're a football organization and you have great, loyal fans. And I really believe that there's a lot of energy. It's a really great team that's been assembled, and we really haven't thought about the past. We've been looking towards the future. So it's pretty easy because the excitement we have here and the players we have here and the coaching staff, we're really excited.
Where have you been if you have not been out to camp yet? The big bobbleheads alone, you should have got out here. Hey, coming up in the show, we're going to continue to talk about new additions, and who better to talk about than the #4 overall pick, Denzel Ward. That is coming up next on the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special. Countdown 2018 Training Camp Special. John Doss, Nathan Zagura, Dustin Fox, and Derek Forrest. And of all the notable additions to this team, Dustin, there's a lot of them in that secondary.
There's no question, and the most notable is Denzel Ward, the 4th overall pick out of the Ohio State University.
Oh, so you had to get it in. It only took you, what, 8 minutes to get that in the show?
We'll get it in. But listen, the good thing about Ward is that he looks like the 4th overall pick. We've been stung before by a man named Justin Gilbert, who was a very high draft pick at corner, and Denzel Ward has looked the part. I mean, he's not the biggest corner in the world, but he's got such great athleticism. His speed's awesome, and he's got great technique. That's great. But the problem is we got to find an answer at the other corner spot. And Nathan, you think that Mitchell's probably taking that role, or somebody else?
Yeah, well, so far, you know, when you come back from that day off, that's where you see the changes. And today, Terrence Mitchell was inserted into the starting lineup for the Browns opposite Denzel Ward. The coaches call him Money Mitch, and he has a knack for getting his hands on the ball. Last year with Kansas City, 4 interceptions. By the way, that would have led the Browns. 18 pass breakups, and he's a guy who has really started off strong. He has one of the 2 interceptions in team drills thus far, and T.J. Carey struggled, and Money Mitchell has taken advantage of that opportunity.
E.J. Gaines, one of the new additions as well. Derek?
Brianne Buddy Calhoun, what do you guys think about that young guy?
Buddy Calhoun's a beast. That guy will literally do anything you ask him to do. He's more of a nickel guy to me, but I mean, he came in as an undrafted guy and just made the squad and tore it up.
And had everything. A pick 6 in his first appearance back in Miami, and he's playing right now as the starting nickel corner, competing with E.J. Gaines, who you mentioned for that spot, but also working at free safety. He's the second-team free safety, so a lot of versatility with Brianne Buddy Calhoun.
Speaking of safeties, how about Jabril Peppers getting back on the field? We actually have a soundbite from him. He talked about that very thing.
You know, it's definitely hard. You know, that makes camp way harder when you can't go out there and compete and practice. You know, let loose that energy. You know, it just sucked just being on the sideline watching the guys. But today I get a chance to get out there, be with them a little bit, and then you know, after this day off, you know, I'm back in action.
All right, so Peppers getting back to his natural position. Just talk about that move and how beneficial that is.
Listen, everybody makes fun of how deep he played last year, 25 yards at times in that Greg Williams defense. He's not a free safety, guys. He is a strong safety inside the box. He played linebacker his last season at Michigan, so this is going to be something for him. I think ultimately building his confidence back up. I think not being around the ball, having a knack to make those plays last year, kind of brought his confidence down a little bit. This is going to be huge for him this year. Yeah,
he's in a battle with Derek Kindred at that strong safety spot, but the good news is you do have a true free safety now. Demarius Randall acquired in one of those trades by general manager John Dorsey from Green Bay, where Alonzo Highsmith and Elliott Wolf were instrumental in drafting him in the first round. He already has an interception in camp. Last year with the Packers, had a stretch of 3 games with a pick. He's a true free safety. They made him play corner. He told me, I am thrilled to be back at my natural position. That's where he played at Arizona State, and now the Browns have that true center fielder for Greg Williams' defense.
I think fans might say, well, it's in the secondary. Like, what's it matter? Corner, safety, weak safety, or strong safety? Whatever. No, it makes a difference. I mean, they're different positions. When you've grown up, you've played
absolutely totally
different. You played one position, and they ask you to play something else. It makes things very difficult.
Absolutely.
Luckily, the Browns are going to ask Nick Chubb to play the same position that he played in college. How's Nick Chubb going to fit into that running back group? Plus, more on Joe Thomas's potential replacement coming up on the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special.
You know, our team's not the oldest team in the league, but we have a pretty experienced O-line, you know, with J.C. Treader, Kevin Zeitler. We got Chris Hubbard. All of us are in, you know, year 5 or 6 or 7 for Kevin. So we have a good experience of guys that have played a lot of games, have started a lot of things, have seen a lot of things in the NFL. And I think it's good. We're going to have kind of a group of leaders on the O-line where it's not one guy has to be the rah guy all the time. We have a good mix of guys that can take responsibility for our actions and kind of lead the group.
All right, welcome back into the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special. So there is a lot of experience on this offensive line. Of course, the guy that had the most experience is now awaiting his call for Canton. That's Joe Thomas, and we've been wondering who's going to replace Joe Thomas, and plan A, B, C. Those hadn't worked out. Joel Bitonio switched to left tackle today. That's a big deal, guys.
It is a big deal because you're taking a guy who was one of the elite players at his position at left guard, and Joel Bitonio, moving him to tackle. Now, the good news is he did play tackle his last year there at Nevada. You slide in the 33rd pick Austin Corbett next to him, and when you lose a guy like Joe Thomas, you're never going to replace him. But I think what the Browns want to do and hope to do is get their best 5 guys up there, solidify that, because as you know, the game starts at the point of attack, and the Browns have to be sound there.
Well, there's no question about it. I just think it's a little late in the game to be making the switch, and I'm a little concerned about it because we're taking a guy that has, again, only played 1 year of left tackle at Nevada, guys. We're talking about the NFL trying to replace a Hall of Famer, and you're doing it a week into training camp. It's going to be a difficult challenge for him. The one thing I'll say about it is he's a very selfless guy. He's a team-first guy, and to be willing to make that move, he's going to attack it. Like, he's going to do everything he can. And look, his first day out there, he faced Myles Garrett several times and held his own.
And held his own in one-on-one. And you have to remember, part of this is happening because Sean Coleman didn't live up to what they hoped he would. And another reason it's happening is your second tackle starting off the training camp, Greg Robinson, is out with a concussion. And the young guy they like, an undrafted free agent, and don't forget this name, Desmond Harrison, coaches tell me he has as much physical talent as anybody they've seen at the left tackle position. He's on the PUP list, so you really don't have another choice.
You think there's a chance that they move him back inside at some point?
I think had Greg Robinson not been out, he would be playing left tackle right now. Because he's out, we'll see when he comes back if he gets a shot.
Now, the guy who made the decision, Hugh Jackson, he spoke about the decision to move Joel Bitonio to the left tackle after practice today.
We know he's one of the best left guards in football. He has the versatility to go out there and play. And me knowing Joel, he's a team guy. You know, a lot of people don't want to move away from where they've had a lot of success. So I had a really good conversation with him. We're going to do everything we can to continue to address that position. Obviously, there could be some people still within our team that could play it. But right now, I think he gives us the best chance to go out there and play tackle and solidify the offensive line right now. But like I told him, you know, we'll keep working at it. I know John's group will keep working at it and looking for guys. We'll keep developing the guys that are in our locker room. And all it will do is make us stronger as we move forward.
Derek, it's not just about, though, protecting Tyrod Taylor's blind side. It's also about blocking for what looks like a pretty good running back core.
Yeah, you got to protect that running back room, and you now have a dynamic trio at the running back core. You're looking at Duke Johnson, who's hoping to improve on the season he had last year, about 300 yards, but was great coming out of the backfield. But then you're adding Nick Chubb and Carlos Hyde. I'm excited to look to see what these guys can do. What do you guys think?
Listen, man, they've got a new slogan out here, Hardland America.
That's right.
These are the guys that run like
3
the
yards in a cloud
Hardland
of dust.
football. This is what it's all about, right? Carlos Hyde, again, the former Buckeye. Underachieved to some degree in San Francisco, but scored a lot of touchdowns. And then you added Nick Chubb, a guy who I think at some point this year ends up being the starting running back. He's been explosive, dynamic early in camp, terrific runner from Georgia. Split time in the backfield, so he's also unselfish with Sony Michel in Georgia. I'm as excited as anybody about this backfield.
I love the backfield of the Browns, and it goes with John Dorsey's plan. You bring in a veteran, and you bring in a young player. Carlos Hyde, the veteran, averaged about 1,200 total yards there, 8.5 touchdowns the last 2 years with the Niners. But I think you're right. It is going to be tough to keep Nick Chubb off the field. Wearing 31 reminded Alonzo Highsmith of a young Jamal Lewis. He looks that way. He has the size, the speed, the power to be an elite back, and I think if his pass protection improves, coaches tell me they are blown away by what they've seen from Nick Chubb thus far.
Could there be an issue with too many backs in the back?
No.
I will bring up the Cincinnati Bengals as an example because they had a three-headed monster last year in Gio Bernard, Jeremy Hill, and Joe Mixon. So can it be done? It wasn't done there.
Listen, there is never enough talent. I mean, you have three backs here. Number one, Duke's more of a pass catcher. He'll split out. He'll play in the slot at times. And then how often do you see running backs the last 16 games anyway? It's a brutal position. So having that depth, I think it's crucial. Matt Days is there too. We haven't talked about him.
It is great depth to have. If you look at the Super Bowl champion, the Eagles, they had a three-headed backfield. The Patriots have often used multiple running backs. And I think for the Browns, you have an opportunity now to load up the talent there, give Todd Haley the flexibility, and he does like to use a lot of those empty sets where you'll see Duke go from the backfield in motion, and the defense has to tell the quarterback what they're doing, and then you exploit it.
Think about what D just said. Do we have too much talent in the back? When's the last time we've said too much talent
problem to have.
ever on the Browns?
John Dorsey, get rid of some of this talent they got here. So coming up next, defensive line and linebackers. We're going to switch back over to the defensive side of the football. Plus, we're going to talk a little hard knocks. That's coming up with the Browns Countdown 2018 Training Camp Special.
They're working really hard. They're working really well together. It's always competition, friendly. Ogunjobi, all pushing them. They're pushing each other to make each other better. So I can't say nothing, but like I said before about these players, they're good guys. They work hard. They're young. They're energetic. They come to work every day. I really appreciate what they do for me.
I got to get a hat like that. What do you call that? Like a finesse bucket hat? Like, what is that?
Just a traditional training camp bucket hat.
Just a traditional training camp bucket hat. Let's talk defensive line, okay? Going into the NFL draft, we weren't quite sure what the Browns might do with that number 4 pick. We thought maybe quarterback with number 1. With that number 4 pick, we thought, hey, maybe Bradley Chubb, right? Defensive end. Well, the defensive ends that they have on this roster meant that the Browns could go in a different direction.
Yeah, they're very high on Emmanuel Ogbah, and last year we only got a small taste of Emmanuel Ogbah and Myles Garrett together, and they're excited about that. The other thing is, when you actually do a study and look at how sacks are generated in the NFL, coverage can turn around a sack-generating team much more than just one pass rusher. And Marshawn Lattimore did that for New Orleans last year, and they think Denzel Ward can do that. But it's also because they like Ogbah so much.
They've got so much depth on the defensive line.
Do they have too much talent, Dustin? Is that what we're saying?
They're trying to give away all the talent.
Seriously, though, I think it speaks volumes that they didn't go after Chubb. I kept saying, and Nathan was screaming it too, they love Agba. And when Emmanuel Agba can be healthy with Myles Garrett, you talk about bookend defensive ends for a decade. If these guys can continue to pace the way that they have. So listen, I love those two. And there's something Nathan has been talking about, this new defensive scheme where you move 2 defensive ends inside. You called it 2, 4, 5 defense?
Yeah, 2, 4, 5 nickel. So you're going to see a lot of times this year where the Browns will slide Garrett and Agba inside, or it could be Garrett and Coley. They'll go all 4 of these talented linebackers, and we'll talk about that room in a second. But Collins and Kendricks can really rush the passer, and so it's going to be interesting. Defensive end, I think John Dorsey has tough decisions to make because you talk about Garrett and Agba. You signed Chris Smith, who had 3.5 sacks a year ago for Cincy. You draft Chad Thomas in the 3rd round. That's 4 in a 4-3 defense, plus Nassib, plus Nate Orchard. I don't know how all these guys make it onto this team, and that's going to be very interesting to watch.
I think the great thing about it is you mentioned all those guys. The flexibility it gives to Greg Williams, right? Like last year, I felt like Greg Williams was sort of handicapped to some degree because he didn't have the personnel that he wanted.
That's what he felt, yeah, absolutely.
And so now you've added the guys in the secondary. You see all these guys, hopefully they can stay healthy. But it could be a fun Greg Williams defense that's going to be, as we all expect, a very aggressive defense.
Attacking, that's what he wants to do.
Sure.
Yeah, let's move one level up from the line to the linebackers now, but real quick, we've got a quick linebacking highlight to show. So again, we're looking at a very talented core at the defensive end. The linebackers now, led by Christian Kirksey. What does he bring, and what does the other returners and like Schobert and Collins bring to the table?
Yeah, look, I think this might be the best position group on the Browns, and it might be one of the best linebacking cores in the NFL.
Jarvis Landry said they're the best receivers in the league.
Do we have too much talent in the linebacker room?
Well, that's why you have to create a 2-4-5 to get the 4 linebackers on the field. Kirksey, top 5 in tackles 2 years in a row. Schobert goes to the Pro Bowl last year. Jamie Collins is an All-Pro and a former Super Bowl champion. And then you bring in Michael Kendricks, fresh off of his Super Bowl win. He has flashed every time the pads have been on. And talk to me today about winning and winning culture. And he is going to be so invaluable to this young football team with what he knows and what he feels. He's going to lead by his words and lead by example. I'm thrilled about that addition.
Look, competition always brings the best out of anybody, and that group finally has some. You think back to last year, and Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey both played nearly every single snap.
No, they did.
Snap.
Not nearly. Every snap.
They played every single snap last year. Let me tell you something. An NFL season is long. It's exhausting. And when you play linebacker in the NFL, by the end of the season, you're exhausted. You're done. So having these guys like Kendricks in here in the mix, Jannard Avery in the mix is what we talk about.
Have you ever seen thighs like that?
Dude, I mean, the 5th round pick out of Memphis,
no,
they've got tons of depth. These guys are all going to play.
But the good news, the really good news about Michael Kendricks, really cerebral player, really smart guy. You know why? Cal Golden Bear.
That's right.
Yes, correct. Fellow Cal Golden Bear. Thank you. Guys, Hard Knocks set to premiere a week ago yesterday. That's August 7th, Tuesday. Looking forward to it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great access for the fans just to show what this Cleveland Browns team is all about. And I think the players have embraced it, and the coaches have embraced it as well.
It's going to be fun. It's one of my favorite shows as the next player to get inside training camp because for fans who have not been to a training camp, I've been to 5. It's exactly what they portray. Training camp is exactly what it is as a player, and so it kind of brings back memories. I get like the sick stomach because training camp's like the worst thing ever, but it's fun and it's good to kind of have that access. The part I don't like, when you get to see the guys get cut, because it brings back some ugly memories.
I think the fans always want to see the behind the scenes, how things work, no matter what it is, and to see it with football, it's got to be absolutely incredible. But as a player, is it kind of nerve-wracking?
Being on the show? Or just
having all those cameras out there?
It depends. I mean, I think some guys
should be in the zone.
Some guys are probably looking at this like, I'm going to show out for the camera. And other guys are like, I'm just trying to kind of stand with the radar. I've talked to some guys, I was never on Hard Knocks, but to guys who have been on it. The one thing I'll say also is that you see the guys holding the booms, like the mic booms, they're like up in the huddle and stuff. That's got to be annoying for the coaches, though.
You know, I don't know. I just think you get that insight, though, that an average fan, to your point, never gets. And, you know, Hugh Jackson said, I called Joel Bitonio in. We talked about playing left tackle. I want to see that conversation when those two have that.
So
I think that could be, hopefully we will.
And for people wondering, like, we look forward to Hard Knocks, too. I mean, we're here every day, and we see things, but we don't get inside in depth.
By the way,
like
shout out, Building the Browns, pretty good, too.
Building the Browns is fantastic, which, by the way, you can watch after each preseason game right here on News 5. Hey, coming up, no offense to any other position on any other team, we're going to talk about the most important position in sports. That's the Browns quarterback. It's coming up on the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special.
We're going to grow our football team. We're going to grow our quarterbacks. Tyrod Taylor's our quarterback. Baker Mayfield's competing and getting better each and every day. Has done a really nice job of learning our system and improving every day. But Tyrod Taylor has too, and so has Drew Stanton. You know, we have a really good room. I'm excited about our room.
I'm here to fill a specific role. I can be a resource for not only Todd, but for Tyrod, for Baker, for everybody, that this offense can start trending up and be as good as we can possibly be.
I always say that, you know, I set my own expectations, set my own standard. I'm still working, got a lot of progress to make, and so, you know, if I can get a little bit better each day, then I'm doing something right.
The team is headed in the right direction. As offense, defense, and special teams, we're going out there and competing. Guys are making plays and just getting comfortable within the scheme. So I'm excited about each opportunity each day brings, and like I said, I think the guys are doing a great job of competing.
Welcome back into the Browns Countdown 2018 Training Camp Special. John Doss, Nathan Segura, Dustin Fox, and Derek Forrest bookending us down there. Guys, it was the move that kind of jump-started all these offseason acquisitions, and that was bringing in Tyrod Taylor from Buffalo.
Absolutely. Look, it wasn't good enough in the quarterback room last year. Everybody knew it. John Dorsey knew it. Everybody who was a quarterback for the Browns last year was gone, and in comes Tyrod Taylor. And I'll give you 2 reasons why he's here. He's won at least 7 games in each of the last 3 years. He has a winning record as a starter, took the Bills to the playoffs last year, and he takes care of the football. Browns quarterbacks threw 27 interceptions last year alone. Tyrod has 16 in the last 3.
That's pretty
Taking
good.
care of the ball helps you win, and that's why he's here.
I mean, so many games in the NFL are decided by 3 points, 7 points. And, and you think back last year, the red zone turnovers, too, for the Browns. I mean, how many games did they lose because Kaiser or Hogan or Kessler, who's going on, turned the football over
Where's the jersey?
in the red zone, right? So it was a priority, guys, to get some stability at the position.
It's something that Tim Couch talked about when I spoke with him a couple of days ago. He said Tyrod's he's a guy that's not going to lose you a game. And how important is that? I mean, that could be the difference between 3, 4, 5 games from a year ago, Derek.
Yeah, and we were saying on paper, Tyrod's one of the best quarterbacks the Browns have had in who knows how long.
Yes, he is.
But then they go out in the first pick of the draft and they go out and get another quarterback. And we can admit that Baker Mayfield has flair.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? OSU fans get on him for planting the flag on the middle of their field.
He heard it.
He goes on the herd, you know, during the offseason because they had that little Twitter beef. But I think that's what you want in quarterbacks. You want a guy who's competitive and will go out there and fight for his position. And he's been an underdog his entire career. You got to commend the guy.
At every level, he's exceeded expectations. He's always had this giant chip on his shoulder, which is what I love about him. It's what I loved about him at Oklahoma and coming out of the NFL draft. You said, Mr. Doss, that Tyrod Taylor will not beat himself. He won't lose you games. But can he win you games? And that's why Baker Mayfield's here, right? Because eventually Baker Mayfield's going to take that position and be the guy that can, 2 minutes, down 3 points, down 7 points, that can take you down and get a touchdown and win a football game.
And let's hope that's not a question we have to come to at any point in this season. The other good thing is not just sitting behind Tyrod Taylor, but there's a couple of guys in that quarterback room that Baker Mayfield can learn from.
Yeah, he's got Tyrod Taylor, and I think the way that John Dorsey set this up is Tyrod's here to win now. Baker Mayfield's here to be the future. And you have Drew Stanton, who, by the way, has won 11 games in the NFL and went 3-1 as a starter last year, to help Baker Mayfield along. So you've got your plan for the present and your plan for the future, and I think it's a very good setup for a young quarterback like Baker because Stanton's worked with 3 #1 overall picks before in the National Football League and has that experience, knows what those guys need.
Well, the good news is, regardless of who's throwing the football, we've got a pretty good idea who's going to catch a lot of footballs. That's Jarvis Landry. More on Landry and the rest of the receiving corps coming up on the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special.
having Josh and, myself and the other guys, the supporting cast, that makes everybody better. You could be on a team by yourself, but if you're getting double teamed, you're not making plays. So who's the #1 receiver then? I know for me, man, I'm just focusing on, obviously growing as a leader, but, just my technique, fundamental, and trusting Coach Haley to put me in a position to make plays. That's all I do.
Welcome back to the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special 2018. And when Jarvis Landry said last month that he felt like this was the best receiving corps in football, well, one part of that was because of a guy who hasn't been here at camp yet.
Obviously, Josh Gordon. Certainly wish him the best as he's dealing with some personal issues. And the team obviously has to move on and prepare as though he won't be here. But I am still told that they believe it is a matter of when, not a matter of if, for Josh Gordon returning. And when you think about it, Gordon and Landry would be a tremendous 1-2 punch. But even without Josh Gordon here, Jarvis Landry has shown why he got all that money. He's been the best player on the field every single day.
I asked somebody the other day who was watching practice. I was doing my radio show, and I said, what do you think? He goes, Jarvis Landry is awesome. And that was the number. I'm like, okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, analysis over.
So now we're good, right? We finally have a legitimate guy that you can count on at receiver. The thing about the Gordon issue is that it creates openings, and it creates more opportunities for some of these other guys on the roster.
No question.
Like Antonio Callaway, like Corey Coleman. These guys who, Coleman specifically, former first-round pick, he's got to show up this year. I mean, this is maybe his last opportunity to be a legitimate starting receiver in this league for the Cleveland Browns, because at some point you're going to move on from him. His production just hasn't been there, Nathan.
No, it hasn't been there, and Todd Haley said flat out, it's a make-or-break season for Corey. And I talked to Corey 2 days ago, and there is a change in him. I believe he's been humbled by his struggles here in the National Football League. And Jarvis Landry told him when they tried to give Jarvis a day off, we're not taking any days off. Corey didn't take a day off after a rough Saturday and had one of his best practices on Sunday, and you got to hope it continues.
You guys talk about Corey Coleman, but Antonio Callaway, takes a year off because he was dealing with issues in college, but as a #3, you guys really like him.
We both love him, and this is a guy that maybe would have been a first-round pick had he played last year for Florida. Had some serious off-the-field issues that he had to deal with and everything. But it seems as though he's got his life turned back around, hopefully. You may not want to hear this, but I think it's a pretty good thing. He's working with Antonio Brown, one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in football. And frankly, I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of Antonio Brown. A little bit short in stature, great feet, acceleration, burst. All the guy does is make big plays.
All he does is make plays. He gains separation, and one of the coaches told me he is the most natural receiver we have on this roster, and he didn't play football last year.
So those are the receivers. What about the tight ends on this team?
It's a three-headed monster. You got David Njoku. You've got Seth the Valve, who was your second leading receiver a year ago. Those are more your pass-catching guys. And then they bring in Darren Fells, 6'7", 270, former basketball player. He's going to be that blocking tight end. And I will say this, the one thing we've really seen is that Todd Haley wants to use multiple tight ends more often than I think people expected.
Got to catch the football, though.
That's all David's got to do. And he's going to have a big year.
It's kind of gone back and forth so far in camp, right?
It's been up and down, but we had Pat Kerwin on, and he said Todd Haley has been dying to have an athletic tight end who can stress you vertically. He's got portions of his playbook he's never even used, and he's going to use them with David Njoku.
All right, coming up, we haven't forgotten about you. Coming up, special teams and sleepers on the Browns Countdown 2018 Training Camp Special. Welcome back into the Browns Countdown Training Camp Special, live here from Berea. John Doss, Nathan Segura, Dustin Fox, Derek Forrest, and we've made it to that point in the show, guys. We're going to talk special teams, Derek.
Yeah, special teams, and sometimes for a lot of players, that's how you make the team. You go a little bit old school. Maybe it's Steve Tasker, and a lot of people at home, even though it wasn't in the NFL, Rudy, special teams. So just talk about how important special teams is for some of those guys who are trying to grind it out and make the roster.
Yeah, Derek, think about the final 8 spots on the roster to make that 53-man roster. It's mostly comes down to special teams. It's that 5th or 6th receiver. It's that 5th corner. It's that extra safety. These guys are battling their tails off to try and make the roster. And look, it was my life for 4 years. It's so difficult to do it. And so a lot of people don't talk about special teams, but it's so important to these guys. And it's important to the coaches, too. They put a big-time emphasis on it. You can win or lose games in the National Football League on special teams.
Week 1 against Pittsburgh last year, block, punt, touchdown. The punt return you give up against Green Bay. Clean those things up.
Absolutely.
You can win games in the National Football League.
So we talk about special teams because we love special teams.
They're special.
When you get new young guys here at a training camp, it's tough because you got a new playbook, you got new coaching staff, you got new teammates, and oftentimes you got a new setting. Well, for one guy who's trying to make the roster as a kicker, the latter is not a problem.
For many players, coming to training camp means leaving home, but not for everyone. Recently, I caught up with kicker Ross Martin, and he told me how recent changes have his life coming full circle.
There's an old saying, don't quit your day job. But that's what Browns kicker Ross Martin did.
I really liked what I was doing at IBM, but at the same time, I always knew I had the skill to be in the NFL. I always knew that I still had to train.
After getting cut by the New York Jets last year in preseason,
that definitely refueled my passion and commitment to get better and be even more prepared next time.
The 2016 Duke graduate took a job at IBM. But his wife Sarah says he remained focused on the game.
He would always travel with his whole bag of footballs and his cleats, and he would get up at 5 a.m. to go find somewhere to kick before his meetings.
But when the Browns came calling, the desk disappeared.
It was surreal.
And the Browns are not just any NFL team. They're his hometown team.
I remember back in college, he always said if he could play for one team, he wanted to play for the Browns.
He grew up in Solon, went to Walsh Jesuit High School, and attended many Browns games through the years.
Phil Dawson, what a season he's put together.
He says former Browns kicker Phil Dawson set the bar for him.
Right through the middle. My uncle's season tickets are about 3 rows from the kicking net on the Browns sideline, so I always got a first-hand look at Phil.
And now that he's in training camp, his standards remain high.
I'm just out here trying to make every kick that I'm asked to.
Because even though he quit his day job, he is still trying to get his dream job.
Every guy out here has a hometown team, has a team that might hold a special place in their heart, and Cleveland definitely is that for me.
Now, technically, Ross took a leave of absence from IBM, so he can go back, but he's hoping he's not going back anytime soon. Guys?
I mean, it is a fantastic story. This guy's trying to make the team as a kicker. Not just a team, he's trying to make his team. This is a guy that grew up around.
Wish him well.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough, though. Zane Gonzalez.
All right, going forward, the last couple of minutes here are sleepers in camp as we look forward to preseason game number 1 a week from tomorrow.
Well, I'll start with Damian Ratley, the wide receiver from Texas A&M, who was a late-round draft pick. Didn't catch a ton of passes at Texas A&M. Didn't have a great quarterback throwing the football, but when he did catch passes, they're all big plays. Most of his catches were over 25 yards. I think the opportunities are going to be huge for some of these back-end receivers because Josh Gordon's out. If Gordon comes back, things could change, but keep an eye on Damian Ratley and Higgins.
Yeah, and I'll give you a couple receivers, and it's not just Josh Gordon's absence. Ricardo Lewis is out for the year as well, and so I'll give you Rashard Higgins. I don't think anybody has done more to help their stock over the first 6 days of camp than Rashard Higgins. A great rapport with Baker Mayfield, and then C.J. Board is a receiver, number 16 if you come out here. He doesn't do anything flashy. He just keeps making plays. So those two guys, that receiver position, looking pretty good. And then I'll throw out Justin Curry as a middle linebacker to keep an eye on.
We talk about sleepers.
Throwing out sleepers now, which is from all angles.
Too much talent. About
sleepers.
That's what he said. Too much Bitonio, though, moving over to left tackle, right?
Yep.
One thing we didn't touch upon, but I wanted to ask, how much do you think Joe Thomas will help? He mentioned him today, saying maybe he'll send some film and things like that. How will that help out?
I think it'll help a lot. Obviously, the guy is a reservoir of information. And for Joel Bitonio, I think when you heard the uncertainty in his voice, he hasn't practiced those techniques. There's no better technician to ever play left tackle in the NFL than Joe Thomas. I think he'll be an invaluable resource for Joel.
No doubt about it. I mean, think about what Joe Thomas meant to these guys in the locker room. Now Joel Bitonio is basically one of the veterans in that room,
longest tenured Brown.
Which is weird because Joe Thomas has been here forever, and all of a sudden these young guys in that room have to sort of step their game up.
So you don't mind having that guy at left tackle.
Yep.
Derek Forrest, Dustin Fox, Nathan Segura, I'm John Doss. Thanks for watching the Browns Countdown 2018 Camp Special. Remember, Game 1 is a week from tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Browns Countdown starts right here at 6:30. We'll see you then.